And welcome back to my channel. Here we are with another weekend recap. This is week two. We had a grand total of 22 number one performances and two NCAA records. So we have a lot to discuss. And again, welcome back to my channel. Please like, subscribe, comment. It's always welcome. Thank you for supporting. Without further ado, let's get started. And we'll get started right away with the two new NCAA records because they're in non traditional and non championship events. The first will go to Genoa McIver of Florida, 600 yards, a minute and 5.75 seconds. And Tanada Matsatsa of Georgetown in the 1,000 meters, 2 minutes and 16 seconds, 0.84. Both incredible performances. Genoa McIver, transfer from Iowa to Florida, had a kind of a up and down year last year, but he was a solid piece on the relay. This is probably to me a much better start. I think that the transfer probably threw him off just a bit, but I think he's ready, and I think Florida has a very strong team as usual. He ran a 44.9 anchor, so we'll see what he looks like come 400 time, which we'll probably see him run the 400 open the next time out. Tanada Matsatsa, I think, will be a great middle distance runner for Georgetown. They went 1 and 2 in that race, and it was also number one and number two all time. So impressive weekend for Georgetown. They haven't been the big time power like a North Carolina or a Duke or a Oklahoma State or Arkansas or Oregon, but they have produced some very talented distance runners over the years, and it seems like they're moving into an even more competitive space. Now let's get things started with our second leg today, which will be sprints and hurdles. And we'll start with the men, which had four new number one performances, and right away we're looking at Max Thomas of USC. 6.53 in the 60 meters this early is an impressive time. He wasn't mentioned in the preview. However, I do think we can't ignore that now that's the time that he's going to be there. But the guys I mentioned in the preview have shown up at championship meets. We need to see Max show up. But a time like that says, I may be ready. YM McCoy of Florida also ran 6.53, but he ran it at altitude, which is at Corky Classic, which is Texas Tech. So his time was converted from 6.53 to 6.55. Now, Carly McElroy of Kentucky has been mentioned on this channel before. He was the top guy from New Mexico Junior College last year, and he was at one point our top 200-meter guy last year. Now that he's moved on from the junior college ranks to Division One at Kentucky, here he is still, performing at a high level. He also competed at the Corky Classic, a time of 20.48 that was converted down to 20.55, which still has him at number one. Great time this early in the season. We'll see how he adjusts to life at Division One, but so far so good, and this is a really positive transfer for Kentucky. Johnny Brackens of USC in the 60 hurdles, the time is 7.49. 7.49. You will see the video in a moment. Just an outstanding race by this young man. I just think that he's so impressive. I was blown away. That is a really talented time this early in the season. 7.49. Will he run under 7.4? I think he will. And it seems that the transfer, or the not the transfer, but the change in hurdle coaches. Joanna Hayes, the Olympic gold medalist, has left USC to take over UCLA, to bring UCLA back to what we saw it being in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We thought that there would be a few setbacks, but a time like that says, okay, the coaches there got it. Best of luck to Joanna at UCLA, but we got it here. And just also as a tip, Nona Waldron, the young sophomore at USC, ran an 8.17 in the women's 60 hurdle. So clearly, there's still, quality coaching at USC, but who's surprised about that? The Florida men's 4x4 we'll look at in just a moment, but I'm going to pause for about 20 or so seconds so that way you can watch this amazing race by Johnny Brackens.
Brackens out strong along with Paredes. They both hit the first hurdle. Now Brackens emerges away from Paredes, and the Bowerman watch-list athlete lowers his time to 7:49. No one can stop him. Still remains the fastest time in the NCAA this season for Johnny Brackens.
And as you saw, 7:49 is impressive. And in the 4x4 for Florida, their time was 3:02.80. One of the best times all time already. That's how they are starting this season. But it was, in fact, converted down to 3:03.24 because, again, it was at altitude. Maybe this Florida team gives us a 3:01. Are they going to chase the national record of 3 minutes 70 or 3 minutes 8 by USC? Remains to be seen. Um, but this is a very deep group, really talented group, and their anchor because they battled throughout that relay with Texas A&M, with Arizona State, and for a minute it looked like a race between Texas A&M and Arizona State, and then Genoa runs that 44-9 anchor and just moves past both anchor legs for Arizona State and Texas A&M, who, here's something I noticed, none of the three anchors were their fastest splits. Wanya McCoy ran the fastest split for Florida. I believe he was a 44.8. But I think Genoa ran the best anchor out of the three anchors, and I was surprised because Ahmad Robinson was the anchor for Texas A&M. He wasn't last week when he competed. He was the third leg, and they moved him back to anchor where he is strongest. He did not look like his normal self as an anchor. So I'm really sure there's going to be a discussion, and I wouldn't be shocked if all three programs made tweaks. I don't know if that's going to be the relay order for Florida. It looks solid, but we might see a completely different group come 2 weeks from now when we're having the Razorback Invitational, which is the next time they plan to compete. But that was an impressive performance by USC, or excuse me, by Florida. And on the women's side, and shame on me for not including this talented freshman, but she was the star sprinter last year from the state of Texas, and she's already beginning to kick things off. And we know the last superstar who did that. Her name was Sha'Carri Richardson. And how did that turn out? India Mayberry of TCU, 7:11 in the 60 meters, and it was converted down to 7:13 because she competed at altitude too at Texas Tech. That is an insanely fast time for a freshman. That is better than Richardson and better than Julian Alfred. And I don't think enough people have paid attention to that. Like, let's pump the brakes and let's have a real discussion. She ran a faster time than Julian Alfred as a freshman, Sha'Carri Richardson as a freshman, and even Brianna Liston of LSU as a freshman. She is number one in the country with a solid time. That time would be great for anybody of any age. But for it to be a freshman at TCU, we need to spend some time looking at Miss Mayberry. What will she be doing come championship time? Because that is not a slouch time. I think she's going to shock some people. In the 200 at the same meet, so yes, we got another converted time, Tariah Kelly of Baylor, 22.8, converted down from a 22.73. Baylor still checking out some pretty good sprinters, even though some may transfer away. Those who stay continue to perform well. And she's one of the ones that has stayed and performing at a high level for Baylor. 22.73, converted to 22.80. This early, we have some strong young talent showing. In the 400, Jamija Ford of South Carolina. Happy to see this young woman back and to be able to be mentioned on this channel because she is certainly very talented. She's ran 51.31. That was converted down from 51.20. I still think she's going to be more of a 200 runner, but for her to already be running 51 low, I'm curious to see what she's going to do when she's running her next 200. Is she going to run a 22 low to start her 200-meter campaign? She is the defending champion. Can she do both? Probably. We'll see. What a talented time, or excuse me, talented athlete with a strong time this early in the season. And in the hurdles, our last sprint event, Michaela DeMello, who we did mention in the preview from Washington State, 8:02. That is solid early. She nearly went under 8 seconds her first time out. So this is definitely someone who we predicted to possibly win the title. She made that prediction look strong. 8:02 early. Will she get us to a 7.8, a 7.9? We'll see. I don't think there's anyone in this senior, junior, sophomore, freshman class that's hurling that's going to be running 7.7. But 7.8, I think, will do it. And I think she's probably the most likely right now to, possibly get it since she's starting off with 8.02. Whew. So we'll see what else comes out of those really talented legs later in the season. And oh, I misspoke. There is one more event on the sprint side. It's the Arkansas Women's 4x4. And how could I forget this? Because when I made my notes and looked at the results, I literally paused and I said, has this ever been done? The number one and number two time in the country are both Arkansas. It is their A squad and their B squad. I'm like, at this point, we need to really put GOAT on Coach Johnson when it comes to coaching women's 400-meter runners. Because at some point, we have to properly acknowledge what we are seeing. And I am 38 years old. I remember the great teams of Curtis Fry at South Carolina. I remember the great teams of Bev Kearney at Texas. A coach that I just was like, if I ever get to coach, I want to have my girls look like that. Because they showed up in the 4x4 almost every time. She has so many 4x4 pinwheels from the pin relays, winning national championships with the 4x4 relay. Even with those two programs having those deep runs, and even USC, because a couple years ago they qualified 5 or 6 to the national championship in the 400. This is different. When in the middle of January, still early, but the times are impressive. 3:30.5 for the A squad, 3:31 for the B squad. And I'm willing to bet if you combine the top of all four, this is easily a 3:26, 3:27 squad today. And that's after they saw two incredible athletes move on to the next level. Amber Anning and Nikisha Price. Nikisha Price, now the Jamaican record holder, 48.5. Amber Anning, 49 low. You lose talent like that, and you should take a step back. Granted, they had some big transfers. And we don't know if Isabella Whitaker is even going to be a 400-meter runner or an 800 runner, because she's running 202s. But 3:30.5 and 3:31.2. I don't even know what to say, because that was just really impressive. Hats off to Coach Johnson and to the Arkansas Razorbacks, because you are really doing it. Moving into our third leg, we'll look at the distance events, and there were some really outstanding marks, and I feel like Washington heard my preview and felt away. Because not only do they have the top time for the men's in the 800, they also have it in the mile, and from a man that I probably should have included in my preview. So shame on me. I'll take that L, because both times were impressive. First, we have Kyle Renheimer of Washington, who transferred from North Carolina, running a 1:46.45 as his 800 debut. That's a solid mark. He is number one. I'm a hats off to him, because it's clear that transfer works out for him. And then you have Nathan Green, who I should have included, because he's been a champion before. 3:50.74 in the mile. Take it in. That time did happen. 3:50.74. He's already in the all-time top 10 list. Nearly breaking the record. Early. Mid-January. And has a bevy of teammates that are going to also be great in the mile. Washington is doing everything right with their middle distance runners. And this is proof of that. And Nathan Green, I'm going to say, is an omission by me in my preview to not include him as a contender for the mile title. Because a time like that, I'm sorry, I'm putting him right back to the top. Because that's insane. 3:50.74 in mid-January. Whew. Those guys are moving. Now, on the women's side, our long distance performance will come from Alex Carlson of Northern Arizona. And this is where a conversion happens, because she was on a 200-meter flat track. It was converted based on what would it be on a bank track. and it was converted up to a 4:27:20. So we have our second 4 sub 30 performance of this season. She wasn't an athlete mentioned, but I gotta give my hats off to her. That was a great performance. You see in the picture, she was very dominant in her race on their home track. So I want to see what it's like for her when she steps up to bigger competition at a bigger meet, and we know that's coming later in the season, later this month actually. So we'll see what else she puts up. But I'm not gonna ignore a time like that. That's impressive. 4:27:20, even though it's converted, solid mark. Very solid. Anytime you're under 4:30, you definitely are getting eyes on you. Now moving to the anchor leg. Oh, one more event. One more event. DMR on the women's side, Furman ran 11:36:33. Just a brief mention here, because I do want to give a shout out because that was the number one time. That's we're gonna see certainly faster times. And I think again like last year, all the qualifying relay teams for the DMR will be under 11 minutes, because or at least close to that. 11:36 is a little bit of a slower time, but hats off to Furman for having the number one time. Moving to the field events, on the men's side, of course, a young man who I did predict here to be the top guy, or one of the top guys in the high jump, Tyus Wilson of Nebraska. Outstanding technique, and if you look at their YouTube page or their social media, you can see their athletes and their walkthroughs and the steps that they make and the repetition that they have. Again, I've said it, they are one of the best coached programs. The technique that they train just seems to be so spot on and so keen on development of that athlete that it's just hard to miss, and you see it with their performance. Tyus Wilson, 7 feet 4 1/4 inches, 2.2 meters. I think we will continue to hear his name mentioned not only on this channel but in those track and field spaces, because he's, I think, going to be there come championship time. He's been there before. He'll get a full season to compete, even though the Big Ten is a lot more challenging than it has ever been because of all the teams that have joined. His name is going to be there. Also, we have the pole vault. You have Alexander Solovev of Texas A&M. Texas A&M in the pole vault? Yeah, you didn't know. They may have the next 19-foot guy. He hit 18 feet 10 inches, 5.74 meters. So we'll see, can he get to 19 feet at some point in this season? I would certainly like to see that. I think that is, once you hit that 19 feet, I know that you're an elite level pole vaulter. And for him to do that now, and at Texas A&M, he's going to get plenty of chances to do it. Texas A&M is a regularly competing program. They like to go to the big meets. They host big meets. So we'll see what happens with him, because that's an outstanding mark. In the long jump, another man that was mentioned on this channel, Kelsey Daniel of Texas. 26 feet 4 1/4 inches, 8.03 meters. Petros is the only great jumps coach. You got Edric Florial of Texas doing his thing again with his jumpers. This time a young man, Kelsey Daniel, out 26 4 1/4. That is a strong mark this early season. Don't know if we're going to get that 28-foot indoor jump. I do think we may get a 27-foot jump, but we'll see. The triple jump, another man mentioned here, Brandon Green of Oklahoma, taking the reins, 54 feet, 11.5 inches. Yes, almost 55 feet in the seasonal opener, 16.75 meters. He continues to just jump really, really well. He's also, coached very well. His technique looks really solid. I don't think this is as open as perhaps I may have thought, because that is a mark that's really strong early on. Can he get to 56 feet indoors? We'll see. But his name will certainly be mentioned more on this channel, because you jumping like that, I know you got some in those legs. And in the shot put, Tariq Robinson O'Hagan of Ole Miss just always seems to find a way to get mentioned here. Here he is again. Another number one performance by him in the shot put, 68 4 1/4, 20.83 meters. Ole Miss just producing those throwers, and Tariq is literally the man. They always have a star. Always, and he is their star. Iowa's getting their name in the throwing ring. Ryan Johnson, a weight thrower, 78 feet 9 inches, 24 meters. for this outstanding thrower. That is a new record at Iowa, and that's saying something because they've produced some great throwers over the years. Ryan Johnson is now the number one guy in the country. Wasn't mentioned here on the in the preview, but I want to add his name as a potential contender. That is a strong performance. 78 feet in January. Will we have an 80 feet thrower? Because Tariq is number two in the weight throw. The fact that he's number one over him should tell you something. Now on the women's side in the field events, there were three new number one performances. And Petros said you're not going to have a video and not include me any or one of my athletes. Here he is again with another athlete, Rose Yaboa of Illinois in the high jump. I did not think we were going to have such a competitive Big Ten in the high jump, but we are. Rose Yaboa is 6 feet 3¼ inches, ties Jenna Rogers of Nebraska, 1.91 meters. I thought Jenna would just run away with the Big Ten. I gotta walk that back. I do. Because that mark from Rose and then her coach and his history with his jumpers and his multi-event athletes. Oh man, I'm looking forward to that. I think the Big Ten is going to be really good. This is going to be an insane Big Ten indoor championships there in Indianapolis because the West Coast athletes are bringing it, and the mainstays in the Big Ten are still bringing it. So, gonna be competitive. In the pole vault and the weight throw, we're going to the same school, Virginia Tech, another really strong school that teaches technique well with their field event athletes. Julia Fixon, our new pole vault leader, 14 feet 9½ inches or 4.51 meters. Outstanding X mark. She's really close to 15 feet. She's mentioned here on this channel before. She's been a competitor for a while. So I'm curious to see what she does as the season progresses. I still look at Hannah Mole as, the star in this event. But Julia Fixon, now the new number one. And in the weight throw, you have Sarah Killen and her teammate, 74 feet 4¼ inches, 22.66 meters. Impressive mark. It is a open event, so we're still trying to see who really is going to be the favorite. I know I previewed some other names, but I'm not going to ignore a 70-foot or 74-foot throw. We'll see. I think that event will unfold closer to championship season because I really do think this event is that wide open. But we're not going to not give Sarah Killinan her props for a performance like that. And that is another review, another successful weekend. I hope that all of you celebrated your MLK Day. You listened to the great messages that he left, performed some active service, had great conversation with neighbors of different backgrounds. Hope you shared in what his dream was all about and continue to share. Thank you all for listening and taking time to spend your day with me. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. As you can see, I readily comment. I will reply back. If I don't reply back immediately, just know I'm still working. It's okay. But I will reply. And I look forward to another video. And the transfer video does come out this week. I officially agreed to do it. And some of those names I mentioned today, like Carly Makarawu of Kentucky, he's going to be in it because he is an outstanding transfer. Thanks again, guys. See you next time.